Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Namah Vrindavanam Kaya Tubhyam Goloka Mauline Purna Brahma Tapatraya Namo Govardhanaya Cha Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayed Nashta Prayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Yutama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtaki Om Jnanitimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 7, continuing in this slightly haphazard series of looking at the second chapter of the first canto, Divinity and Divine Service. So text 7, Vasudhave Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayatya Subhairagyam Jnanam Cha Yadurhaitukam. By rendering devotional service unto the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Those who consider devotional service to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna to be something like material emotional affairs may argue that in the revealed scriptures sacrifice, charity, austerity, knowledge, mystic powers and similar other processes of transcendental realization are recommended. According to them, bhakti, or the devotional service of the Lord, is meant for those who cannot perform the high-grade activities. Generally, it is said that the bhakti cult is meant for the Shudras, Vaishyas, and the less intelligent woman class, but that is not the actual fact. The bhakti cult is the topmost of all transcendental activities, and therefore it is simultaneously sublime and easy. It is sublime for the pure devotees who are serious about getting in contact with the Supreme Lord, and it is easy for the neophytes who are just on the threshold of the house of bhakti. To achieve the contact of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is a great science, and it is open for all living beings, including the Shudras, Vaishyas, women, and even those lower than the low-born Shudras. So what to speak of the high-class men like the qualified Brahmanas and the great self-realized kings? The other high-grade activities designated as sacrifice, charity, austerity, etc., are all corollary factors following the pure and scientific bhakti cult. The principles of knowledge and detachment are two important factors on the path of transcendental realization. The whole spiritual process leads to perfect knowledge of everything material and spiritual, and the results of such perfect knowledge are that one becomes detached from material affection and becomes attached to spiritual activities. Becoming detached from material things does not mean becoming inert altogether, as men with a poor fund of knowledge think. Nice karma means not undertaking activities that will produce good or bad effects. Negation does not mean negation of the positive. Negation of the non-essentials does not mean negation of the essential. Similarly, detachment from material forms does not mean nullifying the positive form. The Bhakti cult is meant for realization of the positive form. When the positive form is realized, the negative forms are automatically eliminated. Therefore, with the development of the Bhakti cult, with the application of positive service to the positive form, one naturally becomes detached from inferior things and he becomes attached to superior things. Similarly, the Bhakti cult, being the supermost occupation of the living being, leads him out of material sense enjoyment. That is the sign of a pure devotee. He is not a fool, nor is he engaged in the inferior energies, nor does he have material values. This is not possible by dry reasoning. It actually happens by the grace of the Almighty. In conclusion, one who is a pure devotee has all other good qualities, namely knowledge, detachment, etc. But one who has only knowledge or detachment is not necessarily well acquainted with the principles of the Bhakti cult. Bhakti is the supermost occupation of the human being. I thought with this talk I'd try and sort of take the stabilizers off a little bit, and rather than read from some prepared materials or discuss many different shlokas from something in front of me, I'll just try and speak off the top of my head, as they say, because I did see it was said somewhere that it's very good we can read from prepared materials, but one should be able to preach with at the drop of a hat, as it were, to say something live and from the heart. And in that spirit, we can read. I'll read the he says, off the top of my head, I'll read the translation just one more time. By rendering devotional service unto the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. So he's saying that Prabhupada uses the word corollary, which means secondary factors, or things that are not the tatashta, they're not the swarup lakshana, is the Sanskrit phrase. You have the swarup lakshana and the tatashta lakshana, the intrinsic characteristics and the extrinsic characteristics. So here, the purport's very nice in this, because it's setting up the supremacy of bhakti. At the very end he says bhakti is the supreme occupation, and many times people, in a spirit of trying to be polite to others, don't like to hear when one philosophy is criticized over another, or one is, and it's not in, the point here is that it's not in the spirit of criticism. Prabhupada says in the purport about one will have no material, what does he say? Well, he says no material values. So this, sometimes we have these illusory values of not wanting to criticize a certain philosophy out of not wanting to hurt people's feelings or something, but this is not Shuddha Sattva knowledge, Shuddha Vidya, because one vidya over another is different. There is a hierarchy, and bhakti, being transcendental, is its swarup lakshana. This verse is saying that one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world by rendering devotional service. It's like some experiment or something, that you put in a certain certain ingredient in the beginning, and then many other things are produced from that. So knowledge and detachment are secondary they're secondary, following in the wake of pure devotional service. Whereas if you don't have if you're not practicing bhakti, then knowledge and detachment alone will be very difficult. Krishna says in the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita that those who are too kleshodikataras teshas, those who are too attached to the impersonal, unmanifested absolute, for them advancement is very difficult, very troublesome. And before that he says that those who worship my personal form, always thinking of me, that to me I consider them the most perfect. And that's really the point of the supremacy of bhakti, is that it is in direct relation with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And some might say, oh, this is just some ipse dixit statement. Ipse dixit, it means that you make a statement saying this is the way it is, and it is the way it is just because the way it is, and you've got to accept it, and that's it. And there is a quality of this bhakti coming from the root bhaj, meaning communion, really. Bhakti is communion with the divine, with the Supreme. And that Supreme Absolute, which is absolute truth, who is a person, is Krishna. He's the oldest of the old. He's the oldest person, but he's Navayovanam as well. He's eternally youthful. There's that verse, Atha Shri Krishna Namadi Nabhavat Graham Indriyai Sevon Mukhe Hijivados Vayat Evas Purat Yadaha. That the absolute truth is imperceptible to the senses. Another name of Krishna is Adhokshaja. He's beyond the reach of the senses. He's Harikesh, he's the master of the senses, but he's Adhokshaja, he's beyond the reach of our material senses. So how are we to have knowledge of anything beyond our senses? We have to take it on authority. The scientists so many times say so many things, and most of which we haven't seen, but people generally believe all these things, what they're told, whether they're doing empirical experiments themselves to try and ratify what they're told. But here Prabhupada says that the science of bhakti, he says that the process of approaching the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is a great science, and it is open for all living beings. And this is the experiment that we can all make. You say, you take 14 steps towards Krishna. Shraddha to Prem is 14. Then see what the result of that experiment is. But the problem, obviously, many people are impatient and they're illusioned by the illusory energy. They're in illusion of the illusory energy, so they cannot even take the time to make this experiment. Why? Because it's a lifelong experiment. Actually, it may well be many lives long. So who among everyone is willing to say, okay, yeah, I'll try your experiment for one whole life, and then they find out, oh, it may take many lives. So, but the point is that it's what does he say in the purport? It is sublime for the pure devotees who are serious about getting in contact with the Supreme Lord, and it is easy for the neophytes who are just on the threshold of the house of bhakti. So yeah, it's easy to start. It's easy. It's not like you start yoga asanas and you're all stiff and you can barely do the easy asanas and you get out of breath and it hurts, and then you wake up the next day from your yoga class and you're all aching. No, bhakti yoga, somebody gives you Harinam, I don't necessarily mean in terms of some formal initiation. Diksha is vital, but even somebody just teach, or you've just from reading Prabhupada's book, you get the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare, and you buy, or someone gives you a neem bead mala or tulsi mala, hopefully, and you get your bead bag and you get up and you chant 1 round a day, or 4 rounds, or 8 rounds, or 16 rounds. And so it's easy to start. It's like the game of chess. They used to say that there were as many iterations of the game of chess as there were atoms in the universe, and I think they've now revised that statement a little bit as like an 18th century, 19th century statement or something, but they've revised that. But if you look at the number of how many iterations of games of chess there are, it's 10 to the power to the power to the power to the power of to the power of to the power of 99999999999 recurring. It's a huge number. But to learn the rules of chess is not so difficult. You learn the knight moves 2 forward and then 1 across, and bishops go diagonally, and the queen can move in any way, and the king can only move 1 at a time. You learn all these little bits, and then you can say, oh yeah, I know how to play chess. But you go up against some grandmaster and boom, good luck. But the point of bhakti is that it's not competitive. The point of that metaphor is not to make anyone think that bhakti is a competitive thing, but just that we can learn it, but then as we learn and we progress, we start to realize how deeper and deeper and deeper it goes, because it's ultimate, really. We're dealing with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but how sweet His love for us is, really. Manmata bhavamad bhakto majji mam namaskaru mame vaisyasi satyam te pratijane priyosi me. Satyam te pratijane priyosi me. Priyosi me, that we are dear to Him. And those who realize that, then the product, manmana bhava mad bhakto, manmana bhava, that the whole mind becomes absorbed, the heart and mind becomes absorbed in loving mellows of Krishna, in whatever sambandha that is. But as we've talked about before, for Gaudiyas, it's generally this Kamarup Tad Bhav Ich Atmika Bhakti, with the relentless pursuit of Radha Dasyam, that we want Krishna Prem, and we want to please Krishna by pleasing Radha and assisting Radha in pleasing Krishna. Really, it's Radhe Radha Krishna Yugal. Hare Krishna Mahamantra is Yugal mantra, that we're worshipping Radha and Krishna together. And this is quite unique, that all the Abrahamic faiths, they have a conception of the male divine, the male God, Yahweh or Allah, or I don't know about these Abrahamic faiths very much. I know the Catholics, they have the feminine with the Mother Mary, but this point has been made many times about Radharani, why Gaudiyas don't call her Mother, because she's the Supreme Shakti, so why shouldn't we approach as Mother? But this is not the conception. This is definitely not the conception. Radharani is a teenage girl. She doesn't have any children. There's no Vatsalya Bhav there in the love between Radha and Krishna. It's just Madhurya. It's just that sweetness, or the Ujjvala Rasa, the very radiant, very lofty spiritual aspirations that take us to that point where Prabhupada is saying it is sublime for the pure devotees who are serious about getting in contact with the Supreme Lord. So it's easy to start, it goes very deep, but it gets more and more sublime. And Harinam, Harinam, Harinam eva kevalam, kalo nasjeva, 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 gatir anyata. The most effective method of spiritual realization in this current age is the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. No other method is as effective. And even that is a little bit different. So if I can get this point out that I'm thinking of, because it's a little bit subtle, that the translation to that is often given as method of spiritual realization or self-realization. But here Krishna's talking about acquiring causeless knowledge and detachment from the world as a secondary tatashta lakshana quality to the rendering of devotional service. And the chanting, it being a method of kriya of bhajana kriya, it's what we do, it's the action, it's a verb, then it becomes sadhya as well as sadhana is the goal. Because Krishna, he says, Gatir Bhata Prabhu Sakshi Nivasaha Saranam Surit Prabhava Pralaya Stanam Nidanam Bijam Avyayam. He is the goal, the master, the witness, the sustainer, the refuge, the abode, the most dear friend, the resting place, and the eternal seed. I'm not sure I get the English quite right, but he says he's the goal. And so reaching I suppose reaching the level of asakti, attachment, is where it would take over more, that you're worshipping for the purposes of love, of what I'm trying to say is that knowledge, Prabhupada says here, knowledge and detachment are not enough, and that contacting Krishna through the communion of Navavidha Bhakti, of which the primary limb is the chanting of the Mahamantra, then that becomes a self-propelling eternal occupation. Parodharmo, that's what the other verse we keep referring to, Savaipum Sam Parodharmo, that it's paradharma, dharma, that even Krishna consciousness goes beyond Dharma. It goes directly to Sri Krishna, because Sri Krishna is Leela. You see so many things, it seems like he was adharmic, dancing in the, and not moral, dancing in the forest in the Ras Leela at the night, the young maidens of Vraj leaving their husbands, leaving their houses in the dead of night, running with their makeup smeared and their shoes falling off, and tearing their clothes on the bushes, and leaving everything like that. But this is what is stressed. Prabhupada stresses in all the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam about the difference between Krishna's affairs with the gopis, which at first glance may seem like, well, they're just lusty affairs like any teenagers have with the opposite sex. Then what is so special? The point of what is so special is Krishna's ontology of who Krishna actually is. And this point, like Ata Shri Krishna Namadi Nabhavam Graham Indrani Sevon Mukhe Hijivado Swayameva Sparat Yadaha, that we can't comprehend that which is beyond the senses. But the Ekanga Bhakti, as Bhaktisiddhanta coined that idea, and I've been thinking about this. This is one point I wanted to put in when I thought earlier about chanting Mahamantra, Nam Japa, especially Japa, although Kirtan, it's said in places, is para anga of bhakti, would be to sing these transcendental songs. But either any Nam Bhajan contains all the other angas of, or may contain all the other angas of the 9 limbs of devotional service. Why? Because you chant, so you're naturally hearing, that's Shravan. You chant, you're chanting, that's Kirtanam. Smaran, you chant. You can, if you're doing Leela Smaran while you're chanting, then it's all tied up in one. Vishnu Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, you can do Manasi Seva and give Krishna the massage his feet, and you can have that very soft-hearted, tactile quality of chanting on your tulsi beads to aid in that meditation of tender, loving, mellow devotion to Sri Krishna. So Padasevanam, Dasyam, that obviously goes in with Manasi Seva, Dasyam. Sakyam, you chanting is that method to take communion. That's what the Roman Catholics do, isn't it? They take Holy Communion and they sip wine and they take the wafer and things. But our Holy Communion is chanting our Nam Japa, and through that, we become friends with Krishna, because it's maybe not true in some sense. Yes, Radha's not approached as mother, Vatsalya Bhav, and there's a point in the Chaitanya Charitamrita which is quite difficult to understand about the overlapping of transcendental mellows. But in another subtle sense, if you are in a relationship with someone, in a loving, intimate relationship, even if they're not your son, there may be some Vatsalya Bhav there may be some oh, you haven't eaten enough, let me, oh, you're hungry, oh, let me eat. There's some, it's not quite the same. Maybe it's not right to say it's Vatsalya Bhav, but some of the qualities, but certainly when it comes to friendship, that's the sweetness there. It's not like some workhouse. This Krishna consciousness movement, it's not a workhouse. It's a festival. That's what that verse from Radharas Sudhanidhi that we had the other day is a festival of divine love, and it's a celebration. So yeah, and then the other point of Atma Nivedanam. So when we're chanting, we can turn our phones off, turn the phone off. Mine's on at the moment. It just isn't as well as I'm waiting for a call from someone. But we can turn our phones off and offer ourselves Atma Nivedanam. And Atma Nivedanam doesn't mean that there's no negative sense, like Prabhupada says in this purport, that there's the positive form. Detachment from material forms does not mean nullifying the positive form. The Bhakti cult is meant for realization of the positive form. So it's very positive. The Rastafarians have this positive vibration. Bob Marley sang or something. Positive vibration. Krishna consciousness is the process of becoming spiritually attached. We can aim for that platform of asakti leading to bhava and prema, to be positively attached. And then what he says here, when the positive form is realized, the negative forms are automatically eliminated. And in the purport to, I can find it, go on. Nashta prayeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavat yutamas loke bhakti bhavati naishtaki. Maybe I'll do a separate video on this shloka as well, but it's one of the ones that is chanted at the beginning of the Bhagavatam classes. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So yeah, so we got our Nam Japa is chanting. Sometimes people chant with a sort of rag or melody to the japa. Some people chant very monotone. Either way is fine. But then it says here, who is praised with transcendental songs. Well, I'll go back to this purport from text 7, which we're discussing. I just wanted to read that with this point about praised by transcendental songs, because what is this bhakti cult? There's an interesting use of that word as well, cult, because people hate that. They think, oh, it's some terrible consequences coming of being part of a cult. Well, cult really just means a system of belief, and there are so many cults. People, if you watch the TV, you are part of the cult of believing TV to be acceptable or good or something. But people maybe sometimes look at the bhakti cult as, oh, what is this? Maybe even some like yogis or something, people who do asana and pranayama or something, they say, well, what are these? These are just vegetarians singing songs. And there's certainly a lot more to it than that. But Krishna certainly is praised with songs, but the qualifying adjective there is transcendental songs, that the songs are not a supra-mundane, and the ultimate song, and there's many songs of Vaishnavacharyas. Narottam Das Thakur, certainly one of the greatest lyricists of, although saying lyricist makes it sound less transcendental, because he was a kavi. He's a great poet. That's one of the qualities that a devotee has. 26 qualities. One of them is kavi, is poet, being poetic. And we maybe aren't necessarily writing our own things, although that can happen. That was part of kirtan as well, is sankirtan. It's complete. So we could write our own self-composed songs or little prayers or poems. It's very encouraged. But we can also sing Narottam Das Thakur's songs, or many other people have written these transcendental songs. So, and why are they transcendental? Because of that ontology again, that being of Krishna, of who beingness, if you like, of who he is, that we get in contact with that supreme, and that's the uniqueness, because you can do dhyan on void, or nirvishesh, nirvikalpa, formless kaivalya or something, and for as much as you like, but only by Guru's grace or Krishna's grace himself can we get a chance to take part in this bhakti cult. But here Prabhupada says it very resolutely: bhakti is the supermost occupation of the human being. And I'm not really sure I got that point across earlier that I was trying to make. My eloquence is not so great, really. The point about devotional service being communion and being based on love, like it's been said, the relationship based on love, not love based on relationship, because generally in material dealings it's very business-like. It's like you scratch my back and maybe I'll scratch your back, and I'll do this for you if you do that for me, and this is not the transcendental platform of relationship with Sri Krishna. It's loving Krishna for Krishna, loving him for who he is, as it is. And the best process to do that is chanting this Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this is his bhakti cult, really, because obviously before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu the bhakti cult was still there. It's eternal, it's ever present. But Chaitanya, we have the great good fortune of being in this Maha Yuga with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come, and he gave the Shikshashtakam, these 8 verses. Ashta means 8, and the first shloka of that is Chetodhapanamajanam bhavamaha dhavagninevapanam Shreya kairava chandrika vitaranam vidyavadu jivanam Anandam buddhivadanam pratibadham punamritasvadanam Savatma snapanam param vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. And I don't know the English translation. I know the meaning, so we'll try and go through it, because it gives some important pointers about what he gives us some inspiring points about what the chanting of the Mahamantra does. So first of all, Cheto Darpanamarjanam. Chit Darpan, that Darpanam, it cleanses our consciousness. It cleans our consciousness. Prabhupada had this discussion several times, I think, where people said, they say we're brainwashing people. And he said, no, we are brainwashing people, but not in the sense that they thought. The brain is full of dirty contaminants, and we are cleansing, so it cleanses the consciousness, and it's a gradual process, obviously, but Chetodapana Marjanam, it's the mirror of the mind gets cleaned. Chetodapana Marjanam, Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam, that it extinguishes the blazing forest fire of material illusion, of the material world. And that's really what needs more to be said about that statement, because people who get a little bit of realization may get a bit down and start realizing the more you advance in spiritual realization, the more awareness you get of how hellish material life is. Like we heard, Pravriti Marg, path of sense enjoyment, is inferior to Nivriti Marg, path of renunciation, and the path of sense enjoyment is thwarted at so many stages. It's likened to like a single drop of water in the desert. If you're lost in the desert, it's blazing hot. You've drunk all your water. Your stomach is fire. Your throat feels like it's full of a load of thorns. You've stopped sweating because your body's trying to retain all the moisture that it can possibly hang on to. And suddenly, one tiny drop of water lands in your palm. Yes, you're like, moisture. But is it enough to extinguish your thirst? No. Whereas spiritual life is likened to an ocean, the Rama ocean of ras, of bliss, of anand, absolute anand. And actually, there's a difference between proper ananda and material enjoyment. They're not even in the same definition, same category, completely separate. So, Bhava Mahadavagni Nivapanam, Shreya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam, the waxing moon. I'm going to have to refer, I know I was trying to do this from memory, but I'm going to have to refer to the book. The waxing moon that spreads the white lotus of good fortune for all living entities. The waxing moon, the moon waxes and wanes, and this is saying that Shreya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam. It's the waxing moon, so it just gets greater and greater. Waxing is when the moon is getting brighter, obviously. Insulting your intelligence, but that's what it's saying, that it grows the more you put in, the more you get out. Vidyavadu Jivanam, that is the very wife and life, the life soul. Vidyavadu, Vadu means wife, so it's the life and soul of all education. It says here, but it also means the wife. It's the wife and the life. If we're married, if we're chanting, then we're naturally in a system of education. So it teaches us, like in this, go back to this verse this class is talking on, this 1.2.7, by rendering devotional service, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment. Vidya Vadu Jivanam, so that we're It goes hand in hand. Anandham Purivardhanam Pratipadam Punam Rathasvadhanam. The chanting of the holy name of Krishna expands the blissful ocean of transcendental life. And this is a point which is quite dear to me, this point of, and it relates to talking about composing poems or prayers or songs, or even you could extend that definition towards artistry generally, and people maybe draw paintings, paint paintings, draw pictures, make music, all these artistic things. There's the 64 arts. Then we should never be ashamed of our efforts in that, because there's this quality of anandam buddhivardhanam, of expanding the ocean of rasa, of transcendental life. So it's ever expanding, because all these offerings, Krishna accepts the bhava, he accepts the prema, he accepts the love of us, or I'll come back to that. And then Savatma Snapanam, it gives a cooling effect to everyone, enables one to taste full nectar at every step. Snapanam is bathing whole being, Sava Atma, the whole Atma, the whole being gets bathed, and has a very cooling effect. So we are very hot-headed from stress or something. We should be getting to appreciate the rare fortune, the ati dolabam fortune of appreciating the panacea for all material affliction, for the great mantra, the great mantra for deliverance, as Prabhupada said, it's said many times. So Harinam 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 eva kevalam kalo nasjeva gatir anyata. I will end there. Went into a little bit talking about devotional service, the secondary qualities of it causing the arisal of causeless knowledge and detachment, but those as only being secondary. Holy Communion, for want of a different Western type different words for us to understand. Communion with Krishna in the spirit of sweetness and simplicity and heart deep feeling, and then the process of our meditation, the supreme spiritual meditation of chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And talked about Navavida Bhakti, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam Dasyam Satyam Atma Nivedanam, and singing of transcendental songs, whether they've been written by ourselves or by others, and what the difference between mundane songs and why we should give them up, and transcendental songs. One of the great transcendental songs which they often sing, is often sung before class, is that Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brija Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tera Vanachari. So Brija Jana Ranjana, Krishna brings happiness to all the residents of Braj, and he's the Vanachari. He lives. We go to the forest of Vrindavan, which we talked about in the other talking about Vrindavan Mahimamrita. So I will finish here and wish you all a very peaceful day, evening, rest, waking and chanting. Radhe 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 Govinda Govinda Radhe Radhe Govinda Govinda Radhe 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 Radhe